It's the rare fifth Wednesday, folks, and this one's gone rogue. No guests, no script, just GolfCask Nation. Cheers. What we're going to do here today is a little video answering questions from you. This is an off week, right? So there's actually 5 Wednesdays in this month. So this is kind of a way that I like to fill the gaps, talk about things that are coming inside of the system, talk about kind of some key features, but more so questions asked by you, the fan of GolfCask and membership wise. So we're gonna take a golf question, take a whiskey question, talk about some travels, and then talk about additions inside of GolfCask, what's coming in the weeks and months ahead. So let's dive in here. Cheers. I'm actually having the Irishman Founders Reserve, small batch Irish whiskey. It's pretty tasty. All right, let's dive in here. Golf question first. I got this from a whiskey fan that is actually starting to play more and more golf. They were a part-time golfer, but now inside of GolfCask, enjoying what we do, trying to get better at golf. The question was, what can I do to become better at golf? I think golf has 3 main components if you want to be good at it. And it's not your typical technical jargon that you're going to hear about. Number 1 would be hitting the ball far enough to play. So golf is hard enough. So if you're hitting golf balls that don't go very well, you can't get to the green in regulation, golf just is miserable, right? So playing the correct tees is massive, right? So if I can average 220 off the tee, playing a 7,500 yard course is not the way to go, because then I'm going to be hitting nothing but woods and long irons in. Or if I'm just learning the game, getting the ball elevated and moving in the right direction at a reasonable distance allows us to enjoy this game. So I wouldn't play a ton of golf until I can start getting the ball moving in the right direction well, at a good enough distance. Again, we don't have to hit it like Rory McIlroy or Bryson DeChambeau, but we do need to be able to hit it far enough that we can play the game and be enjoyable. 2, control the golf ball flight within reason. So a lot of times in golf, everyone talks about distance off the tee, that's important, but more so is left to right, right? How well can I control the tilt of the golf ball, the spin of the golf ball, and be able to keep it in play, right? So if I can hit it reasonably far enough, and I can keep it relatively in a zone where I know the ball will probably end up somewhere in this zone, now I have the makings of being able to play the game of golf. I'm a putting coach, a short game coach mainly. For most golfers, I'm unimportant until they start getting in the 70s. Once you get in the 70s, we're really trying to refine scores. A putting coach and a chipping coach becomes really important. But until then, it's really a long game coach, getting you to be able to hit the ball well. And again, if you go inside of GolfCask, there's some great coaches that are providing stuff inside of GolfCask Life. Chris George in Williamsburg, John Llewellyn down in North Carolina. We have Rob Fales here in Charlottesville. We have Charles out in the UK, outside of London. We have Fran down in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So there's some really good golf coaches that would really help you to achieve that next level, right? So again, our goal is to be able to hit far enough and be able to hit it within a cone or a variance that allows us to keep the ball in play and allows us to enjoy this great game. The third key component is getting off the putting green as fast as possible. As you get better at golf, what you'll start to see is if you're shooting in the hundreds, you're probably putting around 40 times on the putting green. And if you are breaking 70, you're putting probably 29 times. So what does that mean? That means 11 strokes of improvement from 100 to breaking 70 comes from putting. It's not that much if you really think about it. So what does the average amateur do almost as well as the touring pro? Putt. What does the average touring pro do disproportionately better than the average golfer? Ball striking. So again, that's why 1 and 2 are the most important. Be able to hit it far enough and be able to control it well enough. So again, if I'm going to break 100, I'm going to putt 40 times. That means, can I hit the ball 59 times from tee to green and then get off the putting green on 40 shots? So again, if you think about it, we're playing 18 holes. I have 59 shots to get it onto the green over those 18 holes. If I can do that and putt 40 times, I break 100. Same thing with 90, right? I'm going to putt roughly 36 to 38 times. So again, what does that look like? Well, can I get around the golf course in 40 some shots? So again, it gives you that idea of what it takes to be able to play competitive golf and become better. So learning to strike the ball at a certain distance and variance is really important. So 1 and 2, and then 3 again is getting off the green as fast as possible. I can definitely help you with 3. I can kind of help you with 1 and 2, but again, I would reach out to some of these instructors inside of GolfCask Life and get them to help you. Next question, whiskey-wise, and this is actually from a friend that's actually up in Canada right now. He was like, why does Canada get such a bad rap inside of the whiskey world, and what are some good whiskeys inside of Canada other than Crown? I'm not a huge Crown fan, but Crown serves a purpose. It is a very flavorful, sweet, smooth, easy drinking whiskey. Has its place in the whiskey market. I just don't really enjoy sitting down and enjoying Crown Royal. So there are some wonderful whiskey distilleries up there. You have Lot 40, Bridgeland, Alberta Distillery, J.P. Weiser, Wildlife, Sons of Vancouver. There are some really good whiskeys being made in Canada, but we as America think of Canadian Club and Crown Royal. There's so much more to that. So make sure that you experience as many Canadian whiskeys as possible and don't cast a dispersion just because you might not enjoy a Crown or a Canadian Club or whatever that is, right? So how is Canadian whiskey a little bit different than American whiskeys and even Scotch and Irishes? They do things a little bit different. When they distill a whiskey, they distill 1 grain at a time. What do I mean? So inside of bourbon, so let's say we're making bourbon, right? So we're gonna have a corn is our major mash bill. 51% has to be corn. There's probably gonna be a little bit of rye grain in there, secondary grain, maybe wheat. And then we're gonna use barley, malted barley as for enzymes at the very end. So we're gonna have 3 to 4 grains inside of that mash, right? And even inside of Irish whiskey, right, a pot still, if there's a blended pot still, you're gonna have some barley, you're gonna have some malted barley, you might have a grain of oat or some other variant in there. So they do all that with the mash bill. So they cook it all together and they run it from that. And the Canadians don't do that at all. The Canadian whiskeys, for the most part, are blended. They do have single malts, they do have rye, they do have things along that lines. But what they do is they take each distillant and run it separately. So they'll run a wheat distillant, they'll run a corn, they'll run a rye, they'll run a malt. They could even run a barley, they could run other grains. And the other really cool part is when they run them, they can actually run them at different proofs, right? So the blender inside of Canada might have corn sitting there and he have corn at 80 proof, 90 proof, 110, 120, 130. So that gives him such flexibility to be able to add complexity and textures to the whiskey just by changing proofs. So they'll run all corn, all wheat, so they'll have all these and they age in the barrel individually, right? So again, it's not pouring all these in together, put them into a barrel. They'll actually age them independently as well. They do some barrel aging where they'll mix them in, put them in the barrel, but they also do some aging where they'll run basically, like I said, all the corn just sits in a barrel together, all of the wheat, all of the rye. And again, what this gives them is maximum flexibility. So when they go to blend a whiskey, they'll take corn at 120, they'll take rye at 90, they'll take wheat at 80, they'll take malted barley at 120. It doesn't matter. They have such flexibility in what they're blending together, and that's where I would say Canadian whiskey is more like engineering, right? They're taking all these components, engineering it for a flavor, where when you do it with the mash bill, you're not engineering, you're kind of feeling your way to a flavor profile. So just a little bit different way to doing it. So that's where I see Canada, like I said, does get a bum rap, but there are some really good whiskeys out there. I really like Lot 40. Alberta Distillery makes some really good whiskey. Even Canadian Club, their 18-year-old rye or high proof is really good. I recommend that. All right, what's been going on? Well, at GolfCask a couple weeks ago, my friend Eddie, Bo, and I went on a little whiskey trip. I left Charlottesville, we rolled up into Strasburg, Virginia, and went to Filibuster. Great distillery, Sid's there doing some really cool stuff. He has a new line of whiskeys coming out here in the upcoming days, and here inside of GolfCask, we should be up there with a podcast, kind of walking through these new whiskeys next week. So really cool stuff, really good whiskey. Their bottle and bonded bourbon was spectacular bottle while I was up there. And then from there, we rode into Catoctin Creek. Becky Harris, you've seen her on a bunch of podcasts we've done in the past. Great whiskey maker, phenomenal person. First time I was able to sit down in the tasting room. It is awesome. It's an old bank / Buick dealer. Beautiful big doors open. She gave us a full tour, a full tasting, and I didn't know that they made brandies. So she actually allowed us to try a little of their brandy line. Their peach brandy is spectacular. I shouldn't be telling you this because that way they only have a limited quantity of those. So I don't want those disappearing. But really good stuff. And then we drove into West Virginia where my buddy Bo has a farm. And we drove in that evening, sat down, enjoyed some whiskey, enjoyed some cigars, let time get away with us. We forgot what time it was. So to get dinner in Martinsburg, West Virginia gets kind of challenging after 9 p.m. So we went to a little hole in the wall called the Copper Still. It was a West Virginia experience, but it had really good food and we had a really good time. The next morning we woke up, shot shotguns, did some skeet work, had fun there. And then kind of the biggest surprise of the trip is we went to Devil's Due in Kearneysville, West Virginia. Absolutely spectacular. Ken was one of the distillers. He was behind doing a tasting. We did a full tasting of all their whiskeys and moonshines. And then he took us back, gave us a full tour of the back. We actually sampled out of the bottle. It was really cool. We tasted a small barrel at 2 years, and the same distillant in a 53-gallon barrel as well at 4 years, and we actually tasted the subtle differences. And it was really interesting to see how the smaller barrel works in relationship to the larger barrel. So really cool way of actually going on a tour. So again, if you're ever in Kearneysville, West Virginia area, you gotta look up Devil's Due. It was spectacular. And then we went into Black Draft, which is another distillery just outside of Martinsburg, only minutes from my buddy's farm. Completely different experience. Devil's Due was all about the whiskey. Black Draft is a farm. They grow their own grains. They do all the distilling on property. Just a different atmosphere. That's the best I can say. Didn't seem to be whiskey centric. We went in for a flight and they told us, yeah, we do flights of cocktails, but not of their whiskeys. They had Pabst Blue Ribbon in their fridge. It was much more cocktail friendly than it was actually whiskey centric. They did send us to a back room where you could do samples of the whiskey. We heard the spiel of every distillery. Here's who they are, but the passion and all that just wasn't there for me. A little disappointed. I was really hoping that Black Draft was going to be really cool. Their rye I really enjoyed, but their bourbons and stuff was just average. But overall, 4 whiskeys over 2 distilleries over 2 days. We were supposed to play golf that afternoon, got rained out. Big thunderstorms in the afternoon. So we went back, smoked some more cigars, drank some more whiskey. We actually filmed a cigar pairing, but it was just too over the top. I cannot ever release that. Well, maybe I'll release that inside a golf cask with a bunch of beeps in it. It was a little over the top, maybe a little too much whiskey in us that day. But fun trip overall. Came back Sunday morning, rip-roaring for the week to go. So that was a trip we're just going to make, and we're going to make a lot of trips like this as a group. So if you are a GolfCask member, make sure you go to the events page and be looking out for some of our travels coming up, and make sure that you sign up and join us. Good times. And then what's coming inside of GolfCask? Wow, there's a lot going on. But the biggest piece that we're building out right now is Poor Decisions is being added, which is going to be a ranking system inside of GolfCask. We are in the process of testing and fixing some components. So I'm hoping here in the next couple weeks, maybe by end of August, this should be up and running fully, where you're going to be able to go in and see what's ranked, be able to rank things yourselves. And we're also creating a group called the Syndicate. There'll be a whiskey syndicate, a cigar syndicate, a golf syndicate, and a pub syndicate. So these will be people that will go out as experts through GolfCask and review, and those will sit on the system. And then the GolfCask Nation as a whole will be able to review. So you'll be able to compare your reviews against that of the experts, the syndicate inside of GolfCask. So you'll be able to take kind of our beliefs and what we think of it, and be able to call us fools or completely agree with us or be somewhere in the middle. But it'll be fun. There'll be a lot of banter. And again, it's all coming from love and fun. So Poor Decisions is coming. Be on the lookout for that in the coming days, or should I say weeks. We also have GolfCask Life will be out September 1. All the articles are pouring in right now, so I'm actually working through layout. We have a couple new advertisers coming on board. We thank the advertisers, can't say enough. As we get closer, I'll release the names on who's actually paying and advertising with us. And again, you as GolfCask Nation, you need to go out there and support them as best as possible, because they're doing a lot to help us grow our brand. But other than that, that's kind of what's going on. I figured this would be a fun way to kind of run our podcast this week. I shot it in iPhone-friendly format. Instead of the wide version. I'm wide enough. We don't need to accentuate my wideness. And Cheers to you. Thank you all so much, and I look forward to bringing you more stuff in the future via Golf Cask and our passions of golf and whiskey. Cheers, my friends.